Welcome to virtuallyred.com. My name's Eric Hinderer, and I'm going to take you through a guided VMware NSX-T 2.4 manager deployment and 3-node cluster configuration. So before we get started, we're going to look at requirements, and you see requirements there for vSphere in regards to the NSX manager. We see 4 vCPUs, 16 gig of RAM, and let's go take a look at version compatibility there for ESXi. So we put in our NSX-T 2.4.0 version, and we see down below that we have requirements for 6.5 U2 PO3, and up above that we have 6.7 U1 EPO6. So be aware that those are the patch versions you have to get to in order to deploy 2.4. If you need to prep hosts in terms of for upgrade, simply select hosts, go to upgrades, or the cluster. You can choose upgrades and host upgrades. The critical host patch predefined baseline. You can attach that and remediate that across the hosts in our cluster. And if we do that, that'll bring them up to the current version of patch release. So let's go take a look now at once we have our cluster up to the right patch release. Let's go pick one of our hosts and go look at the version there. All right, at this point, we're ready to deploy our OVF template. We're going to browse to our OVA, select that, and hit next. Here, we're going to name the lab NSX Manager appliance. One thing to note here is that you're going to have 3 of these, right? So there's going to be the first one you deploy, and then 2 additional in the cluster. So when naming, think about that in terms of how you're going to name the Manager 1, Manager 2, Manager 3. So here we pick our host to deploy to, validates the host. You can see the summary. We'll click next. Here we get to choose a size for the deployment. One thing to note, the extra small is not for any type of actual production environment. You can choose a small here to get started in our lab. And here we're going to pick a data store to deploy the NSX Manager appliance to. I'm going to choose a network backing here. We're going to select the NVDS that we want it to be on. And now we need to supply passwords as well as some IP information for the appliance. So here we're going to plug in passwords. And here you can specify individual accounts if you need. Here we're going to put in the host name. The default IP gateway. And then the management address. Subnet mask. And some DNS, of course. Next, we'll put in our domain for the domain search list if we need one. And then down below, of course, NTP. Enable SSH and allow SSH logins. And at that point, we're set. We click next. And here we have the summary of the deployment. We'll go ahead and hit next there. The OVF deploys, as you see down below. And we'll do a bit of a time lapse fast forward here, so actually jump forward here in a minute. All right, so fast forwarding to the OVF being deployed, we can now see we've got one manager up, cluster connectivity up. Now it's time to add nodes. So we're going to enable SSH, allow root access, put in some passwords for our next node, choose our form factor, and of course now it's time for a name for our second node. We'll pick the cluster that it's going to deploy to, and here we can pick the individual host or resource pool. Choose our network backing, management IP, with subnet mask consider format, and a gateway. All right, we're ready to deploy that guy. So click finish there. And we're going to do that once again for the third node. So of course we have a 3-node cluster. We have one that we've deployed from the OVF, and then 2 we're deploying additionally through add nodes. We see that next node come up here in a second. There it is. Lab NSX Manager T2, deployment in progress. So we're going to add that third node. Enable SSH, root access, passwords. Choose form factor, next, and name our third node. Here again, we can choose the resource pool or host, data store to back it, network, management IP, we consider subnet, and then the gateway. So we'll finish that one up. You'll see that instantiate the interface here in a moment. There it is. You see Lab NSX Manager 3 deployment in progress. So in the real world, the deployment of these guys will take somewhere in the neighborhood of about 15 minutes to get going in terms of instantiate with the OVF, and then for the sync, anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes after that for the sync to complete. Next, we're going to add a virtual IP for our 3-node cluster. This is going to be the virtual IP that all 3 nodes are serviced from. We'll hit save. This will, of course, configure the virtual IP for a 3-node cluster. Now, once again, you can still manage the primary node by the IP address of the primary node, whatever the primary node is at that time. But you do want to make your changes, of course, to the virtual IP when conducting regular operations. So we'll hit refresh there. And now we should see a 3-node cluster. There it is. Okay, so we see our status up, up, up. In terms of cluster connectivity, we see sync in progress. And that concludes our 3-node cluster configuration.